To say joining us now is Nandala Veerasinghe. He's the Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. Governor, fantastic to have you on the show. We thank you for your time. I know you're new to the job. You only took over as Governor back in April, but I just want to get your view on what my viewers were listening to there. Do you agree with the acting president that the former government lied to the Sri Lankan people about how bad the financial and economic crisis in the country was?
As the governor of central bank or any country as central bank governor, I don't think it's appropriate for me to comment on a political administration previous or current their comments. But I can say one thing, that earlier administration of the central bank and the government had a different economic model that they were pursuing, what they call homegrown model, that they basically were insisting that Sri Lanka did not need support from the International Monetary Fund for a bailout, and Sri Lanka did not need to restructure external debt. That was a position the previous administration was taking. So now, since I took the office with the same administration, took a different position, we were able to convince that administration that we had to turn it around and we have to go to the IMF and seek a bailout package. We have to restructure our external debt. So since then, the administration has been taking a different path. Then this continues even after there was a new government formed, I think last month, and there's another government to be formed from tomorrow. So, but still, I think the successive governments recently, in short term, are basically pursuing different directions compared to the earlier direction that they were not that keen to put the IMF. Earlier administration was not that keen to restructure debt. That is a difference from the last year to this year, as far as I can see.
Governor, I want to ask you about the situation today, because as you said, we need to focus on the future and where to go from here. The hope is that a new government, or at least a new leader, will be elected and very quickly a new government can be in place. We also know that the country's burned through cash reserves incredibly quickly. How concerning is the situation today? Does the country have enough money beyond the end of July to make fuel purchases, for example?
Yeah, in fact, available external resource in the central bank, liquid resource is almost very low, almost non-existent, because whatever the available resource in the central bank we have utilized to support import of some shipments of petroleum products and some of the gas supplies. So that with that we have been able to secure supply of some shipments of petrol and diesel for next couple of weeks. But beyond that, it is in fact the responsibility of the new government to secure some short-term green financing to be able to finance essential imports in next 3, 4, 5 months until we were able to get the bailout package from the IMF probably somewhere in December. So this is a challenging time. So from next month onwards, we are basically negotiating some of the bridging financing facilities from our friendly countries like India, China. So that we need new administration should start approaching those friendly countries or some of the sources to secure some short-term financing so that we will be able to supply essential items for the people to have their day-to-day operations smoothly.
You have currency swap arrangements in place with India and with China. Are they willing to help before an IMF bailout program is in place, or is that support contingent on other help?
Yes, certainly. So far, India has been helping a lot in terms of short-term bridging financing. They already provided $1 billion credit line to import some of the essential items from India. And also they provided us with $500 million petroleum facility that have already been utilized. And also, there was an arrangement called Asian Clearing Union Liabilities, that out of which we were able to utilize almost $2 billion during the last 6 to 7 months to provide support to import some of the items. So we hope that India will continue to support going forward. That all depends on the new administration negotiations, discussion with India. So we hope that India will continue to support going forward in a couple of months. Also, we have hoping we have also made some requests from China to relax some of the conditions in one of the facilities that is China. So if those facilities are coming, if those two countries will agree to relax or continue to provide support, then obviously we can improve the situation until we go down.
Help is coming. The question is how long it takes. The acting president suggested that negotiations with the International Monetary Fund are nearing a conclusion. Is that your understanding too, or is your belief that this still could take several weeks to negotiate?
With the IMF negotiations, what we are trying to reach what they call staff level agreements with the IMF staff, which means the program, the overall macroeconomic program we have devised and planned has been presented to the International Monetary Fund at technical level. So what we are trying to reach, what we call staff level agreement with the IMF, that is the first step. If there was a continuous stable administration, in my view, we could have reached agreement within this month. But if there's a delay in forming an administration, or if there's not going to be a stable administration, then obviously the IMF need a commitment from the new administration of the policies that we have presented to the IMF at technical level. So that process, the time that would take to complete or reach the staff level agreement will depend on new administration approach or agreement with policies that we have already presented to the IMF. If they agree quickly, then we can reach an agreement quickly, staff level agreement. But that is not the end. So that is one step. But beyond that, we need to reach an agreement with our creditors on debt restructuring. So that process also will have to commence once we reach the staff level agreement. That will take another couple of months until we reach an agreement with the creditors. Then only IMF can disperse funds to Sri Lanka to support the rest of trade.
Governor, it all depends on those negotiations, and your actions at the central bank also depend on how the next government behaves too. When you came to lead the central bank, you immediately raised interest rates to try and control inflation. Is this as high as interest rates need to go, or might they have to go higher?
So this is the highest interest rates we have had in Sri Lanka so far in the history. Whether we need to raise more further in the future depend on what will be the outcome on inflation and inflation expectations. What we think right now, we are tightened enough for the time being, looking at inflation expectations, inflation predictions for next 12 months. So if we think, if inflation is going beyond what we think, but then we might try to tighten further. That we have to wait for, need to look at data. And also from the point of view of monetary policy, it doesn't matter what the administration, under my my leadership, central bank will be implementing monetary policy independently from our side. That is our key objective, is to curtail inflation. But it is not enough. So here the balance of payment crisis, overall macro imbalances, we need a combination of monetary policy and also supporting fiscal policies, supporting structural reforms of state-owned enterprises. Those will have come parallelly to have an impact on overall macroeconomic stabilization package. This is why I always say it is not only monetary policy, that whatever we do will have some impact, but without fiscal policy, without structural reforms, we won't be able to achieve the overall macroeconomic stability going forward.
No, and the International Monetary Fund will demand it too in exchange for a programme. Governor, I have about 1 minute left. at a time of deep political instability in your country and pain for the people, what can you say to Sri Lankans watching this interview to give them some comfort at this moment?
I think, in my view, we have a clear program, a clear path that if we follow this path, this reaching, started with the IMF reaching consensus with the creditors, I'm sure, I'm confident that we can come out of this crisis, say, for example, in about 5 months' time. But until then, we will have a difficult time. So we will have to explain to the public that we will go through this difficult process in economic crisis. If people are going to be patient, people have expectations of some recovery with the new administration taking strong measures. We have a light end of the tunnel. So that is what I'm confident. If we are going to have a stable administration from tomorrow onwards, then we can make strong decisions by the administration, and we also support from our multiple side on central bank. Together we can come out of this crisis, but there will be a difficult time. I hope people will be patient and hoping to see the better future, but going through a difficult, painful process in next couple of months, or 3, 4 months, or 5 months until then.
Governor, thank you for your time. And yes, a message of hope, light at the end of the tunnel, but several months more of pain. The Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka said, thank you.